same-sex couples were paying extra money in taxes, as were their employers, based on the value of that health insurance. So that should stop, and the employers should stop paying the imputed income. And we're waiting to hear from some big agencies, actually. We haven't heard from Social Security, which is a huge safety net in this country. So they have to issue guidance, but you should now be able to apply for Social Security based on the earnings record of your spouse of the same sex. And that'll save people from poverty, for example. Immigration, some of the effects have already started, and that information is getting out to people, and we're looking for more guidance. But there are ways now for same-sex couples to be able to sponsor their spouse from another country, and that's huge. There's a story that the very day the decision issued, some law clerk, printed it and sprinted 5 blocks to the immigration courthouse and stopped a deportation that was going forward that very day. Wow. So, that's another big, huge program that's going to save a lot of heartache and, get people out actually of that system, or get them on the path to citizenship in the same way that if it would happen if they were married to somebody of a different sex.
And it's needless heartache.
Yes, it's needless, yes.
Yes. It's just needless. what's the point, And
yes.
So.
Well, that's where the disrespect and the stigma are very painful. Yes. But the breadth of this is huge. It applies to the federal ethics laws. It applies to copyright ownership, because a lot of copyright ownership is important in, say, New York and California. And so now the spouses of the same sex will have the same rights and responsibilities as different sex spouses in terms of copyright ownership, for example.
Wow. It just affects everything.
It does.
And what was it? I heard some evils where people, you get married and, one spouse owns the house, the other doesn't. Oh, here, let me put your name on the deed because you're married, and you think nothing of that. And then you would get a nice gift tax from the IRS. That's no more.
Right, that's no more. Spouses are able to transfer property to each other without restriction in terms of taxes. It's not considered a taxable gift. So going forward, that'll certainly be the case. One of the open questions is, well, what if you did a transfer before DOMA? I don't know that we have an answer for that yet. And this, of course, would only apply to people who are lucky enough to have enough money to be possibly eligible for an estate tax. But still, I think the house situation is a common situation. And if you have life insurance, you can actually get up there on your estate. So I think some practitioners are telling people they should notify the IRS to take back that gift tax. Yeah. And then I think some people might, it's possible the service will allow that. It's possible they'll say, well, we can't know until you die if this is going to impact you, so your heirs should know to challenge this. But income tax is something that's more immediate that I think will affect people. We have not gotten any guidance from the IRS, but they do promise that it is forthcoming. Definitely, I think people should plan on going forward. They would file federal taxes as married, and then you would either choose to file jointly or you would file singly. Your marital status is determined on the last day of the year, so that, of course, will be, so as long as you're married December 31st, you're good. One question people will have to think about is whether they want to try to go back and amend prior year's returns.
Yeah.
It depends. You may owe money, or you may actually be entitled to a refund if you're permitted to file as married. And it may be one answer for 1 year and another answer for another year. So we have guidance on that on our website at glad.org that explains to people some of the risks of doing this and what the forms are that you need to fill out and language you would use if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I noticed it's on the web. It's on the I don't know what you call the banner or whatever.
Okay, great.
Yeah, glad.org. That's a wonderful resource source people should go to. Yeah, the other thing is the military.
Yes.
Oh my God, you had I'll never forget the speaker at the annual dinner who got up there and spoke about if you die fighting for your country, your same-sex spouse does not get notified.
That's right.
It's just, when I heard that, I was like, this is unbelievable.
Right. I know. Then you're like, can we compare our pain? Is that worse than the immigration insult? Or, no, it is terrible, and that should be over now.
Yes.
So the military is moving forward and moving forward quickly. They were actually one of the unique voices that filed a friend of the court brief. We had a lot of military officials who were saying DOMA was actually hurting troop readiness because it was demoralizing for soldiers to know that their spouse would not be notified, and what affects one soldier can affect others, the whole unit. And that bothered people, that injustice, and that just, again, that needless pain.
Yeah. So now, okay, we have 13 states and welcoming California to the fold, 13 states in the District of Columbia. Now we have issues where people get married here.
Right.
And then they move to one of these other states, be it a civil union state, be it, Texas, where they don't recognize any of it. What happens to them? Do we know that yet? Or is that just going to be litigation for the future?
Well, we know if they're a federal employee, they're getting benefits. The current administration has already put out guidance saying that they are just going to extend these benefits to all federal employees. So in that way, you are protected. Social Security is one of the programs that we don't know the answer to because there is language in the statute that says that benefits are determined based on the state of residence. We usually there are two states that are involved in determining whether a marriage exists. The state of celebration, in other words, where you got married, and then sometimes statutes refer to the state of domicile, which is where you lived at the time of the event, the application or the death. I think people are arguing right now about what Social Security means, but I would be very careful if Social Security is an important part of your life before moving. There's some view that if you start benefits and then you move, that you keep the benefits because they've started, your rights attached, and then you move. And I know the IRS and lots of federal agencies have actually dealt with common law marriage, which was recognized by, at some point, almost everybody had it, and then it started to not be recognized by everybody. And I think historically the IRS has said that your marital status at the time that you married sticks with you. It's a sticky status, and so when you move, it comes with you, so you're still married.
And just so people know what common law marriage is, because
Yes.
I'm from New York, and I know they had in New Jersey. If you lived with somebody for 7 years, is it 6 or 7 years?
Some states were a matter of a very short amount of time. It wasn't
Wow.
that long. Yeah, no, you could find yourself married after a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's if you lived with cohabitated with somebody for a certain number of years, the state considers you married.
Right. You are married.
You are married, period.
Yes.
And then states like Massachusetts, and the decisions are very, very strict here. There has to be a ceremony, there must be a ceremony, no matter what. But they'll recognize a common law marriage from another state.
Exactly.
So then the interesting thing comes, well, you have people married in Massachusetts, a same-sex marriage, and they go to Michigan.
Right.
Is there going to be what we call comity between the states, where the state will recognize the laws of another state, of a sister state, as they say?
Right, and where we are right now is that most states, that if they don't have marriage equality already, and you move there, they will not recognize your marriage. They also will treat you as unmarried for all purposes.
Which will be very difficult if you have children or if your spouse is in the hospital.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and on that point, I like to point out there was a 11th Circuit Court of Appeals case where Florida, same-sex couple, the woman was denied the right to go in and see her spouse as she was dying. And they brought a personal injury lawsuit, good. But the 11th Circuit didn't recognize it. So, I mean, people always say, well, that's not going to happen. Indeed, it does.
Oh, no, it did happen.
Yes,
and that actually resulted in a change of federal law. So hospitals that get federal funds cannot deny access like that.
Good.
So that did result in a change. And I think the facts were even worse than what you just described, which is this couple had children, and this woman was definitely dying. And so the surviving partner wanted to accompany the children. Because this is obviously a terribly traumatic event, and the hospital said no. So it's even worse than denying the spouse the right to go in, but to not let the children be accompanied by a supportive adult is just awful.
It is awful, and it's just one of those things we continually face. And God bless people like you from GLAAD, Vickie, who fight the good fight and further break down these walls. So thank you very much. Please go to GLAAD.org. It's a wonderful resource. They have all the information you could ever think of on this issue and other issues. And if you're so inclined, of course, contribute to them, because they literally do God's work, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's great. So what's the next suit?
Well, we're working on